Dear people watching and listening, kindly like and share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Kindly support me through Patreon so that I can keep making such audiobooks for you. For your ease, the video has been divided into chapters which can be found in the description. Izharul Haq, The Truth Revealed by Maulana M. Rahmatullah Keranvi. This is the very book which empowered Sheikh Ahmed Deedat with the knowledge of the Christian scriptures, which enabled him to challenge the claims of the Christians on Islam, the divinity of Jesus Christ, and their own religion as a whole. The book, internationally recognized as one of the most authoritative and objective studies of the Bible, was originally written in Arabic under the title Izharul Haq by the distinguished 19th century Indian scholar Maulana Rahmatullah Keranvi and appeared in 1864. The book was subsequently translated into Urdu and then from Urdu into English by Muhammad Wali Razi. The present publishers are bringing the Wali Razi translation out as a series in several installments, of which this is the 3 parts put together. Maulana Rahmatullah wrote the book in response to the Christian offensive against Islam in British India, and specifically to counter the subversive attack made by the Reverend CCP founder, who had written a book in Urdu entitled Mizanul Haq, the open intention of which was to cast doubts into the minds of the Muslims about the authenticity of the Quran and Islam. Part 2. Contradictions and Errors in the Biblical Text. The Contradictions. Had it, the Holy Quran, been from other than God, they would surely have found therein much discrepancy. Quran, chapter 4, verse 82. The texts of all the Judeo-Christian scriptures contain surprisingly numerous contradictions and errors that are easily spotted by a serious reader of the Bible. This section is devoted to pointing out some of these contradictions in numerical order. The errors found in these texts will be discussed separately in the following section. Contradiction number 1. Any serious reader making a comparison between chapter 45 and 46 of the book of Ezekiel and chapters 28 and 29 of the book of Numbers will notice great contradiction in the doctrines mentioned therein. Contradiction number 2. A comparison between chapter 13 of the book of Joshua and chapter 2 of Deuteronomy concerning the inheritance of the children of God discloses a plain contradiction. One of the two statements has to be wrong. Contradiction number 3. 1 Chronicles chapter 7 and 8 concerning the descendants of Benjamin makes a statement which contradicts chapter 46 of Genesis. The Judeo-Christian scholars have had to admit that the statement made by Chronicles is erroneous. This will be discussed later. Contradiction number 4. There is great discrepancy in the description of genealogical names in 1 Chronicles chapter 8, verses 29 to 35, and chapter 9, verses 35 to 44. This contradiction was noticed by Adam Clarke, who says in volume 2 of his commentary, the Jewish scholars claim that Ezra had found 2 books which contained these sentences with the contradicting names, and since he could not prefer one to the other, he included both of them. Contradiction number 5. In 2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 9, it says, And Joab gave up the number of the people unto the king,
And there were in Israel 800,000 valiant men that drew the sword, and the men of Judah were 500,000 men. On the other hand, we find in 1 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 5, And Joab gave the sum of the number of the people unto David, and all they of Israel were 1,000,000, and 100,000 men that drew sword. And Judah was 460, and 10,000 men that drew sword. This discrepancy in these statements amounts to a great contradiction in the number of people. There is a difference of 300,000 in the number of the Israelites, while the difference in the number of the people of Judah is 30,000. Contradiction number 6. We read in 2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 13. So God came to David, and told him, and said unto him, Shall 7 years of famine come unto thee in thy land? However, we read in 1 Chronicle, chapter 21, verse 12, 83 years famine, or... The contradiction is quite obvious, since the former statement speaks of 7 years of famine, while the latter statement mentions only 3 years of famine, referring to the same occasion. The commentators of the Bible have admitted that the former statement is erroneous. Contradiction number 7. In 2 Kings chapter 8, verse 26, we find this statement. 22 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. In contrast with the above statement we read in 2 Chronicles, chapter 22, verse 2, 42 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign. This contradiction speaks for itself. The latter statement is obviously wrong, and the commentators on the Bible have admitted this to be the case. It has to be wrong because the age of Ahaziah's father, Jehoram, at the time of his death was 40 years, and Ahaziah began reigning just after the death of his father, as is known from the previous chapter. In this case, if we did not negate the latter statement, it would mean that the son was 2 years older than his father. Contradiction number 8. In 2 Kings chapter 24, verse 8, it is stated that Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he began to reign. This statement is contradicted by 2 Chronicles, chapter 36, verse 9, which says, Jehoiachin was 80 years old when he began to reign. The contradiction is more than obvious. The second statement is erroneous, as will be shown later in this book. This has been admitted by Bible commentators. Contradiction number 9. There is an obvious contradiction between the statements of 2 Samuel chapter 23, verse 8, and 1 Chronicle chapter 11, verse 11. Both are talking of the mighty men of David. Adam Clarke, making comments on the former statements of 2 Samuel, has quoted Dr. Kennicott as saying that the verse in question contains 3 great distortions. This requires no further comment. Contradiction number 10. It is stated in 2 Samuel chapter 5 and 6 that David brought the ark to Jerusalem after defeating the Philistines, while chapters 13 and 14 of 1 Chronicles, describing the same event, make David bring the ark before the defeat of Philistine. One of the 2 statements must be wrong. Contradiction number 11. In Genesis chapter 6, verses 19 and 20, and chapter 7, verses 8 and 9, we read, And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. they shall be male and female. Of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind. Of every creeping thing of the other after its kind. 2 of every sort shall come unto thee. But as we proceed a little further to the next chapter of this book, we suddenly come to this statement. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by 7s, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and the female. When we proceed to the next verse, it says, of fowls also of the air by 7s. The contradiction speaks for itself. Contradiction number 12. It is understood from the book of Numbers chapter 31, verse 7, that the Israelites killed all the men of Midian during the lifetime of Moses, and only their young girls were allowed to live in servitude. This statement contradicts the description given in Judges 6, from which it is understood that in the time of Judges the Midianites were so strong and powerful that they dominated the Israelites, while historically the time difference between the 2 periods is not more than 100 years. Having been totally wiped out, how could the Midianites have been sufficiently strong and powerful to keep the Israelites under their domination for 7 years, within the short period of only 100 years? Contradiction number 13. Exodus chapter 9, verse 6 states, And the Lord did that thing on the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died, but of the cattle of the children of Israel died not one. This implies that all the cattle of Egypt had died, but it is contradicted by another statement of the same chapter of the same book, which says, He that feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh made his servants and his cattle flee into the houses, and he that regarded not the word of the Lord left his servants and his cattle in the field. Exodus chapter 9, verses 20 and 21. Contradiction number 14. Genesis chapter 8, verse 4 and 5 contains this statement. And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. This statement contains a serious contradiction of facts, since the ark could have not rested on the mountain in the 7th month, as described in the 1st verse, if the tops of the mountains could not be seen until the 1st day of the 10th month, as described by the next verse. Contradiction numbers 15 to 26. A comparison between 2 Samuel 8 and 1 Chronicles 18 discloses a great number of discrepancies and contradictions in the original version in the Hebrew language, although the translators have tried to rectify some of them. We reproduce some of them in parallel columns below, using the commentary of Adam Clarke on Samuel. As can be seen, there are numerous contradictions in these 2 chapters. The words of 2 Samuel, chapter 8, verse 1. David smote the Philistines, and subdued them, and took the tax out of the hand of Philistines. The words of 1 Chronicles, chapter 18, verse 1. David smote the Philistines, and subdued them, and took Gath and her towns out of the hands of Philistines. The words of 2 Samuel, chapter 8, verse 3. Hadadezer. The words of 1 Chronicles, chapter 18, verse 3. Hadadezer. The words of 2 Samuel, chapter 8, verse 4. 1,000 chariots and 700 horsemen. The words of 1 Chronicles, chapter 18, verse 4. 1,000 chariots and 7,000 horsemen. The words of 2 Samuel, chapter 8, verse 8. And from Betah and from Berothai, cities of Hadadezer, King David took exceeding much brass. The words of 1 Chronicles, chapter 18, verse 8. From Tibbat and from Chun, cities of Hadadezer brought David very much brass. The words of 2 Samuel, chapter 8, verse 10. Joram, his son unto King David. The words of 1 Chronicles, chapter 18, verse 10. Hadoram, his son to the King David. The words of 2 Samuel, chapter 8, verse 17. And Ahimelech, the son of Abiathar, were the priests, and Siriah was the scribe. The words of 1 Chronicles, chapter 18, verse 17. And Abimelech, the son of Abiathar, were the priests, and Shavshah was scribe. Contradictions number 27 to 32. Some other similar contradictions are found in the text of 2 Samuel, chapter 10, and 1 Chronicles, chapter 19. These contradictions are also mentioned by the commentators of the Bible. We reproduce below the contradicting words and phrases in 2 adjacent columns. The words of 2 Samuel, chapter 10, verse 16. Sobak, the captain of the host of Hadarezer. The words of 1 Chronicles, chapter 19, verse 16. Shophach, the captain of the host of Hadarezer. The words of 2 Samuel, chapter 10, verse 17. Came to Hilam. The words of Chronicles, chapter 19, verse 17. Came upon them. The words of 2 Samuel, chapter 10, verse 18. Slew the men of 700 chariots of the Syrians, and 40,000 horsemen. The words of 1 Chronicles, chapter 19, verse 18. Slew of the Syrians 7,000 men, which fought in chariots, and 40,000 footmen. Contradiction number 33. 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 26, contains this statement. And Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots, and 12,000 horsemen. This statement is clearly contradicted by 2 Chronicles chapter 9, verse 25, which says, And Solomon had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen. Urdu and Persian translations have the same number, but the Arabic translator has changed 4,000 to 40,000. Adam Clarke, the commentator, having pointed out the controversies of various translations and commentaries, has said that in view of the various discrepancies, it would be better to admit that the numbers in the Book of Kings have been changed and distorted. Contradiction number 34. Comparisons of 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 24, and 2 Chronicles chapter 4, verses 2 and 3, also discloses a contradiction in the statements of facts. In both texts, a natatorium, that is molten sea, made by Solomon is mentioned. The text of the Book of Kings is this. And under the brim of it round about 3 were knobs compassing it, 10 in a cubit, compassing the sea round about. The knobs were cast in 2 rows when it was cast. The text of Chronicles contains this description. Also he made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in compass, and under it was the similitude of oxen, which did compass it round about, 10 in a cubit, compassing the sea round about. 2 rows of oxen were cast when it was cast. This is what it says in the Urdu and English versions, while the Arabic translation of 1865 describes neither knops nor oxen but totally different things, a kind of cucumber. Knop, ox, or cucumber. Can you find any relation between these totally different things? Adam Clarke, making comments on the text of Chronicles, points out that the opinion of great scholars was to accept the text of the Book of Kings, and it was possible that the word Bakram might have been used in place of Bakem. Bakram signifies a knob, and Bakem an ox. To be short, the commentator has admitted the presence of human manipulation in the text of Chronicles. The compilers of Henry and Scott are forced to say that this difference in the text was due to a change in the alphabets. Contradiction number 35. 2 Kings chapter 16 verse 2 says, 20 years old was Ahaz when he began to reign, and reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. We find another statement in the same book in chapter 18, verse 2, regarding his son Hezekiah. 25 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. This later statement means that Hezekiah must have been born when his father Ahaz was only 11 years old, which is physically impossible. According to the first text, Ahaz began to reign when he was 20. He reigned 16 years. His total age was 36. According to the second text, his son began to reign when he was 25 years old. Deduction of 25 from 36 leaves 11. Obviously, one of the 2 texts is wrong. The commentators have admitted that the former statement is wrong. Commenting on chapter 16, the compilers of Henry and Scott say that apparently 30 has been written instead of 20, and have advised people to refer to chapter 18, verse 2 of the same book. Contradiction number 36. 2 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 1 says, Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. Chapter 29 of the same book starts with these words, Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, began to reign when he was 25 years old. Here too, as in number 35, one of the 2 texts has to be wrong, and apparently it is the first text that is erroneous. Contradiction number 37. A comparison between 2 Samuel chapter 12 verse 31 and 1 Chronicles chapter 20 verse 3 presents another obvious contradiction between the 2 texts. Horn has also noted this difference and has suggested that the text of the 1 Chronicles should be changed to accord with the text of the book of Samuel. He says, the text of Samuel is correct, therefore the text of Chronicles may accordingly be altered. What is to be noted from this example is the despotic and the arbitrary attitude of the Christian theologians towards their holy scriptures. The more surprising fact in this regard is that this suggestion was followed by the Arabic translator in 1844, in the opposite direction to this suggestion. That is to say, he altered the text of the Samuel to accord with the text of Chronicles, and not the other way round, as was suggested by Horn. The readers of this book should not be shocked by this. They will soon be coming to frequent distortions of this nature, a usual practice of the Christians. Contradiction number 38. We read in 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 33, In the 3rd year of Asa, king of Judah, began Baasha, the son of Abijah, to reign all over Israel in Tirzah, 24 years. Contrary to this, 2 Chronicles, chapter 16, verse 1 says, in the 6th and 30th year of the reign of Asa Baasha, king of Israel, came against Judah. The contradiction between the texts is more than clear. One of the 2 texts must be wrong because according to the first text, Baasha died in the 26th year of Asa's reign, so that in the 36th year of Asa's reign, he has been dead for 10 years. Obviously, Baasha cannot invade Judah 10 years after his death. Since he reigned 24 years and ascended to Thai throne after 2 years of Asa's reign, making 26 years, and 1 King chapter 16 verse 6 says, Baasha slept with his fathers. And further in chapter 16 verse 8 of the same book we read, in the 26th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Elah, the son of Baasha, to reign over Israel in Tirzah. The compilers of Henry and Scott, commenting on the text of Chronicles, have said, Asher, a great Christian scholar, has said, this 26th year is not the year of Asa's reign, but this is the year of the division of the kingdom, which was in the period of Jeroboam. The Christian scholars, however, have admitted that the text of Chronicles is erroneous. Either the number 36 has been replaced by 26, or the phrase the division of the kingdom is to be put in place of Asa. Contradiction number 39. The text of 2 Chronicles chapter 15, verse 19 is this, and there was no war unto the 35th year of Asa. This text is again contradicting the text of 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 33, as has been shown in the previous argument under contradiction number 38. Contradiction number 40. The number of Solomon's officers looking after the work is described as 3,300 in 1 Kings chapter 5 verse 16, whereas in 2 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 2, this number is mentioned as 3,600. The Greek translators have altered this number, making it 600. Contradiction number 41. The text of 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 26, giving the description of the molten sea made by Solomon, says, it contained 2,000 baths, while the text of 2 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 5 claims, it received and held 3,000 baths. The Persian translation of 1838 speaks of the capacity of 2,000 idols. The Persian translation of 1845 contains 2,000 vessels, and the Persian translation of 1838 contains 3,000 idols. The inconsistencies and discrepancies of these various texts speak for themselves. Contradiction number 42. When chapter 2 of the book of Ezra is compared with chapter 7 of Nehemiah, several discrepancies and contradictions in the texts can be seen. Apart from textual differences, there are errors in number of the Israelites. In the 2 chapters there are 20 numerical contradictions, and many others where names are concerned. We reproduce below the errors concerning the numbers of the liberated Israelites. The text of Ezra, chapter 2, verse 6. The children Pahath Moab, 2,812. The text of Nehemiah, chapter 7, verse 11. The children of Pahath Moab, 2,818. The text of Ezra, chapter 2, verse 8. The children of Zattu, 940 and 5. The text of Nehemiah, chapter 7, verse 13. The children of Zattu, 840 and 5. The text of Ezra, chapter 2, verse 12. The children of Azgad, 1220 and 2. The text of Nehemiah, chapter 7, verse 17. The children of Azgad, 2320 and 2. The text of Ezra, chapter 2, verse 15. The children of Adin, 450 and 4. The text of Nehemiah, chapter 7, verse 20. The children of Adin, 650 and 5. The text of Ezra, chapter 2, verse 19. The children of Hashum, 220 and 3. The text of Nehemiah, chapter 7, verse 22. The children of Hashum, 320 and 8. The text of Ezra, chapter 2, verse 28. The children of Bethel and Ai, 220 and 3. The text of Nehemiah, chapter 7, verse 32. The men of Bethel and Ai, 120 and 3. Both texts agree on the total number of the Israelites who came to Jerusalem after the release from the captivity in Babylon. These chapters claim that they were 42,360. But if we add them ourselves, we do not obtain this number neither from Ezra or from Nehemiah. The total according to Ezra comes to 29,818, while in Nehemiah it adds up to 31,089. Nor is the total number correct according to the historians. Joseph Eusebius says in the first chapter of volume 2 of his history, the Israelites that came from Babylon count to 42,462. The compiler of Henry and Scott's commentary have said under the comments on the text of Ezra, a great difference has been caused between this chapter and chapter 7 of Nehemiah by the copyists. At the time of their rendering into English, the corrections were made through the available copies. Wherever the copies could not be found, the Greek translation was preferred over the Hebrew. It may be noted how the texts of the Holy Scripture are so easily distorted in the name of correction, and how texts that remained acknowledged for centuries vanished altogether from the books. Meanwhile, the books still remain full of errors and contradictions. In fact, participation of human element in these books has been present from their very origin. The copyists are unjustifiably blamed for making errors. Even today, a comparative reading of these two chapters will reveal more than 20 errors and contradictions.
Contradiction number 43. We find this statement in 2 Chronicles concerning the name of the mother of King Abijah. His mother's name also was Michaiah, the daughter of Uriel of Gibeah. 2 Chronicles, chapter 13, verse 2. Contrary to this, we find another statement in the same book to the effect that he took Maachah, the daughter of Absalom, which bare him Abijah. 2 Chronicles, chapter 11, verse 20. Again, this latter statement is contradicted by the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 14, verse 27, which says that Absalom had only one daughter named Tamar. And unto Absalom there were born 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. Contradiction number 44. It is understood from the book of Joshua, chapter 10, that the Israelites took over Jerusalem after killing the king, while chapter 15, verse 63 of the same book, denies the capture of Jerusalem by the Israelites. As for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem unto this day. Contradiction number 45. 2 Samuel chapter 24 verse 1 says, And again the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, Go, number Israel and Judah. This statement is plainly contradicted by 1 Chronicles chapter 21 verse 1, where it says that this thought was provoked by Satan. Since, according to the Christians, God is not the creator of evil, this turns into a very serious contradiction.